everyone. You are listening to the Minding Mind podcast, where we live life with ease, connection, and permission to just be. I'm your host, Evelyn LeVasseur, and welcome back to another episode. Today, we are going to hear from Stephanie Carter. Stephanie works with women to help them truly work through burnout, overwhelm, exhaustion, and help them lead lives that support them. She helps busy women in the 40 plus era reclaim their time, energy, and balance without burnout. With her unique blend of authority and lived wisdom, she cuts through the noise and delivers practical solutions that actually work. You know, I feel like that part in itself is important, practical solutions that work, because I feel like we're at a time where information is abundant. You can click Google, ChatGPT, any AI, whatever it is, hop on social media and find tons of information, but it's really hard to figure out what is it that will actually work for me? What is it that's actually meant for me? How do I decipher? And who am I listening to? Who is it that can guide me, I guess, back to me?
Totally agree. Exactly. And all that information, in general is great, right? I mean, I use ChatGPT all the time. But I think the problem is we just don't know what information is best for us right now. What are we struggling with right now? I think we just try to fix too many things, or maybe something really just isn't broken. So I think the way that I try to, be a person instead of an AI chatbot, right? You really need that connection is really getting down to what is most important for women and where are they struggling right now? Whether it be something in health or maybe it's just something in life in general. And I think when you start with the biggest thing or maybe the priority that they would like to change, then you have a starting point and you can move from that. We just try to do, because we're women, right? And that's just our human nature. We're very nurturing and we want to do all the things all at once, all at the same time. And that's where we run into problems. It's never going to work. It's always going to be too much. We're going to burn out even on trying to do the good things. And so we just stop. We just are paralyzed with all of the things. So I really work on, breaking it down into just simple steps to get you towards whatever your goal may be or whatever you're wanting to work on.
When you were talking, it just kind of made me connect to this thought that we are constantly doing, right? Like, I feel like a lot of us have been taught to believe that value and worthiness and love and support are earned through productivity. And I feel like we get to the point where we see we want different for ourselves. We feel we want to feel different for ourselves, but we still look at it as more work we have to do. We become the project that we need to fix instead of learning to release some things, maybe some thoughts and behaviors. We take on more and more and more. And now we are another part of our to-do list.
Absolutely. More is just more. It's not always better. And you said it great. I think sometimes it's not about adding, it's about subtracting.
Mm.
And boundaries. Boundaries are so important. Being able to say no to things that don't serve you in this season. It doesn't mean you can't go back and do those things or be that person. But, you really have to think about, what is this something that is going to help me get to this point? Whatever that may be. But yeah, we're just, as women, we're just, people always say, well, I'm too busy. I'm too busy to start a nutrition program or to work out or to work on myself or, busy, busy, busy. And while that may be true, what are you busy doing?
Mhm.
And I think that's where, we really need to take a deeper look on, and for me, just going through a couple of days and just writing down everything that I did during the day. And I would look at, 2 or 3 days at a time, I would be like, oh my gosh, yes, I did all those things, but I didn't accomplish anything.
Mhm.
Like, how did that improve my life or bring me joy or, live with intention?
Mhm.
Right? Be engaged in the moment, live with intention. I just feel like we just keep going from the next thing to the next to the next. We're just checking off tasks every day. And that's not living. And that's why we're so burnt out.
I love that so much. Well, first of all, the word intention, when you said that, made me sit up a little bit because that's actually my word for the year. I keep saying I start every year with a word that I want to use to guide my journey of the year. And this year, I don't know, I was sitting and thinking, like, what is it that I want for myself? What do I've accomplished so much, but what do I still want? Where are my desires and dreams? And the word intention just kept coming back to me because I want deeper connection in my relationships. I want, clear communication and strong connections with my daughters. I want to impact as many women as possible. I want to wake up with joy and peace and some ease in my heart. And I want to love life. I don't want to just exist in it. And I kept saying to myself, how do I get there? And it was intention. It is about every single moment I get to choose. Every single moment I get to decide who I want to be, what I want to do, and not from a place of guilt or shame or any of that stuff, just what do I really even want for myself? And the truth is, for a long time, I couldn't answer that question. When I answered, what do I want? It was always about who I am to other people. I want to have a strong relationship with my husband. I want to be a good mom. I want to provide a safe environment. And it's like, that's beautiful, but also that has nothing to do with me. What do I want for me? And I couldn't answer that for a long time. Do you feel like that's common?
Oh, absolutely. If you just and this time of year, I always like to reflect. People are always like, what's your New Year's resolution? Right. And I'm not saying that's bad, but I think again, you're talking about, more, 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 and reflection is so important. You mentioned that, how about taking, a look back on the last year, what brought you the most joy? Right? What are your favorite moments? I love the practice that Mel Robbins talks about. I don't know if you follow her, where she will go back and she will look through in her phone her photos and just it will make her recall memories of things that happened because you forget everything that happens over a year's time. And then when you look at those pictures, it brings up emotion, and it tells you, is that something that you want to repeat again? Is that something that you're missing? So just really reflection on, what brought me joy? What stressed me out? What do I need to get rid of? What season am I in right now? That I want to continue. And like you said, it's not about what can I do for other people.
Mhm.
It's what can I bring in my life for me that will make me better, the best that I can be, so that I can actually be present and give more to the people that I love. What am I missing, whether it be connections, something in your health, something in your career, really just taking a deep dive on, what worked, what didn't, and what do I need to get rid of and what can I keep? So I think that's really really important.
How do you get women to, how do you get them to even understand that wanting things for themselves is not selfish, is not taking away from their families, because I feel like a lot of us are basically trained to believe that it is our job to ignore ourselves and do for everyone else. Like, we're exhausted and burnt out, but we're proud of it because we think we're doing a good job. How do you help women shift that idea of burning yourself to the ground to make sure everyone else is taken care of and help them to actually see that when you're cared for, the version of you your family gets is way better?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. It's kind of our burnout is a badge of honor almost, right? I think it's really asking when I talk to women and I ask them, what are your biggest struggles
Mhm.
or what would you like to change? And they tell me, and I ask them, why haven't you done that yet? To now, why haven't you done that? And I don't know that they've really thought about, well, why? Or they may say, well, I just don't have time, something generic. So just continuing to ask them questions, well, why don't you have time? And then they'll list things out maybe that they do, well, why are you doing that? Or what, could you not do that? Really dive down to what is the real reason? Because I think we lie to ourselves and tell ourselves that we don't have time, or what is someone going to think of me,
Mhm.
right? If I do this, if I go to, this fitness class instead of taking Johnny to, basketball practice or whatever it may be, what if I'm not showing up the way people expect me to show up? What are they going to think of me? And I still struggle with this. We aren't perfect. We're just trying to get better. But I think we worry about what people are going to think if
Mhm.
we make the changes that we want to make. And especially our family, we put way too much stock in what our family thinks about us. And I think it's just starting there. What is the real obstacle that keeps women from making the change that they want to change? And they may not know it. And it's just it's just me helping them figure that out, that they're like, "Oh, I never really realized that that was the reason." So I don't want to, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a licensed therapist. I am just someone who can relate to what most people, women, are going through in being too busy and not having enough time and overwhelm and burnout. And I have and still working on, but learning to, overcome those things and not use them as an excuse
Mhm.
to why I can't be the person that I want to be and
Yeah.
be more intentional, engaged, and joyful.
I know that for myself, when I started getting super honest about the role I was playing in my own like exhaustion, that's when things really, really changed for me in a sense where if I would say to myself, I just don't have time to do the things that I want to do. I have so many responsibilities, right? And just shifting the statement that I made shifted my perspective because I would change that sentence to, I just don't have myself on a list of priorities. I just don't want to make the change enough. I put everyone else first, and that's why I'm last. Even little things like I would be so frustrated at the time. I told you that I used to do like fitness and nutrition coaching, and I would be so frustrated at health concerns or weight gain, and I would talk to my doctor about like help me out. I can't figure out what's happening. And when the answer was I needed more consistent sleep and I needed to like nurture my body with what it wanted and needed. I needed to move my body because that's what helps me feel better, right? But it was like, why can't the doctor help me? And instead, shifting that perspective to, why don't I want to do the things for myself that I know that I really need and want? And then that question had to be, why do I not see myself as worthy of that effort?
Oh, absolutely.
And that was,
And I think a lot of it is too is, it's not that we don't know what we need to do. We know. It's just trying to figure out how to make that happen. And I think one of the key things is if we really look at all the things that we're doing, what are the things that we don't want to do, but we feel like we have to do them. And pull those out and be like, why do we feel like we have to do them?
Mhm.
Sometimes it's our false perception, right? And I think when we say, okay, is this something that I absolutely have to do? And why do I think I have to do it? And let's concentrate on the things that I want to do first. And then if I still have enough of myself left over, I can do those other things.
Mhm.
So it's really trying to just again figure out, why are we so dang busy? And
Yeah.
what are we doing? And what are the things that we don't really have to do?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
prioritizing, the things that we need to do for ourselves are things that bring us joy that we really want to do. And those should be the things that we do first
Yeah.
or most often.
Mhm. I mean, I look at that when you say that, it's a perfect example because I really prioritize sleep. I am
Right.
somebody who, like, 8 hours is generally just not enough for me. Eight hours during the work week is what I get usually. On the weekends, I'm more like 10 hours. But last night, for example, my girls both dance competitively. They get home late. Dinner was late. So in the past, I would have stayed up making everything was scrubbed out, making sure everything was scrubbed down, the kitchen was perfectly clean, whatever. Today, I can say like I need sleep more than I need a perfectly clean house. So, all the dinner got put away, all the dishes are soaking in the sink. That's going to get done tomorrow. And I get to bed because I don't need a clean kitchen, but I need 8 hours of sleep.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we just have to be better at letting things go.
Mhm.
You just things that aren't important. If you are someone that, you gave the example of, leaving dishes in the sink, if that's going to stress you out and keep you from sleeping, or if you're going to wake up in the morning and be like, it's just going to set your day completely, off, then maybe that's not something that you let go.
Mhm.
But if it's not, but it's going to give you an extra, 30 minutes of sleep, so it's just finding, what really matters,
Yeah.
to me, and figuring those things out. And again, that's where women are missing. They're not asking themselves enough questions on what they want. What do I want? What is good for me? What do I need? What makes me feel good? What
Mhm.
season am I in right now? What is most important to me? And it's just taking the time and listening to ourselves and just changing our mindset on me first. That saying about, pouring into your own cup first. We say it, we know it's important, we know we need to do it, we aren't doing it. And that's really where the problem lies.
How do you guide women to even be able to answer those questions? Because I hear you saying, like, what do I even want? What do I need to let go of? What's really important to me? How do you guide them when they struggle to answer those questions for themselves?
I That is a great question, and that is probably 75 or 80% of most women, I would bet, or at least the ones that I talk to, is they don't know, right?
Mhm.
They don't know really what even makes them happy or what's going to bring them joy. So what I will normally tell them is, have you ever journaled? Journaling really, really changed, my perspective on what I really wanted, and you're just asking yourself, if you don't know now, get out a piece of paper. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Write down your feelings. What am I feeling right now? What am I happy about? Or yesterday, what stressed me out? What made me happy? Do that for a few days and go back and look and see, oh, these are the things that happen that I don't like. These are the things I want more of. And oh my gosh, there's nothing in here about, you know, taking a walk. I used to take walks all the time. Just, kind of trying to just dump on a piece of paper of your feelings, so that you can kind of pick through and see, what's missing here that I would like to bring into my life, what makes me happy. And I think the practice too of going back on memories, even if you have to like go through Facebook and look at pop-up things that happened, then it brings up emotion. And that emotion, how you feel, will tell you whether or not, is this something that serves me, or is this something that drains me? So that
Mhm.
would just be, a practice that I would recommend if you just don't really know in the season that you're in what makes you happy or what you need to change, is, just to start writing or start reminiscing.
Yeah, I even saw a really awesome practice I thought where a lot of people struggle with journaling because they kind of police their thoughts and they start like editing down or watering down what they're saying because for whatever reason. But
Mhm.
I can't remember the account, but it's on Instagram. And the woman was talking about how her clients, she's a therapist, and her clients tend to struggle with journaling because, again, they're policing and they're trying to get it right. And she said she skipped the journaling altogether and instead had them record daily voice notes to themselves. And sometimes she gave them prompts, and sometimes it was just a free speak about whatever it is that came up for you. But she said that when they were able to just talk, not only were they able to empty out their heart of all the feelings that they were carrying, they found release from just speaking it out loud, and they were able to talk themselves into like a next step or at least a quick decision. So I love the idea of like taking away the pressure of getting it right and just talking.
I think that is a great idea. I think something else that helps some people is to go to, your husband or go to your closest friend that you would tell, that you completely trust and would tell your deepest secrets to, right? And your husband and your best friend should be that person. Again, it's all about, having deep connections. We talked about that earlier is very, very important. But I would go to one of them and just say, what, when is a time where you feel like I was my happiest? You know, or, where do you see me struggling the
Mm,
most in my life? Just some things like that, just to help them, help you see what other people are seeing that you may not be seeing. You may be doing better than you think. They
yeah.
may be able to give you ideas. When do I seem most joyful? When do I seem most stressed out? You know, what things, if you could change anything about me, what would it be? And they don't have to be, this is your best friend, right? And just, see how other people see you. And maybe you'll realize, wow, I never thought that, I never really even guessed that, my best friend thought that I was depressed, or, whatever it may be, or thought that I was always mad at my husband, or, you know what I mean? Or just things like that, and I think people they're afraid to be vulnerable.
Hmm.
And that's kind of goes back to the policing the journal and all that. It doesn't have to be anything even deep. If you want to sit down and write, 5 things that you're grateful for today. Oh my gosh, I am so grateful that I can sit here for 10 minutes and drink my cup of coffee. I
Hmm.
love sitting outside and listening to the birds sing. I'm so excited about, meeting up with a girlfriend at lunch today. Just things like that. Then you'll be able to see patterns of what you need to do more of,
Yeah.
because those are things that bring you joy and that you're grateful for.
Hmm. I love that idea of asking someone like what do you see for me? What do you see when you look at me, when you talk to me? I think I may try that.
I love it. I love it.
Love it. Before we started recording, you talked a little bit about what kind of propelled your journey, and you had talked about working 9 to 5, and then COVID happened. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I was, I'm your typical, career driven professional, and my job really required me to just be on the go all the time. Really, I could work 24/7, if I wanted to. But, I did a lot of traveling and just did a lot of I was just like a planner of the calendar, right? Like, where can I go on this day and not miss, my son's game? Or, I mean, it was just constant, policing of my time to figure out how to fit everything in. And, during COVID, when all that kind of went away, I was, working at home. I wasn't traveling. My son was home more. My husband was home more. We just didn't have anything to do, nowhere that we had to be. And I just realized how at peace I was, and just the joy that I was feeling on a daily basis, just doing just family stuff, home stuff, just watching more movies and eating more dinners at home, and, taking walks in the neighborhood with my husband more and my dog, and, just spending time doing things that I was not doing because I didn't have the time. And I just realized, what I was missing, and how unengaged and unintentional my life had become. And I didn't realize how burnt out I was until then, until I was doing the things that I absolutely loved doing and that I was not getting enough of. And it was a real awakening for me to figure out what's most important to me and what I want my priorities to be, and where I wanted, the next, 10 plus years of my life, what I wanted it to look like. And it really is what ignited me wanting to help other women find the same thing, to help them bring joy and get rid of the chaos and the busyness and the burnout.
How did you maintain some of that joy that you felt and like recreating your time or reclaiming your time? How did you do that once like the world opened up and you weren't like forced to be home?
I figured out one, the big thing is I transitioned to a different position
Mm.
because I realized that was not serving me. Like that time, that season, was great, but I needed to do something else. So I kind of transitioned into a different position that wasn't traveling as much. And then I took a real, hard look at my calendar. What have I been doing that I don't really need to do anymore? Or what can I do better, more efficiently? And just noticed all the wasted time, and then things that just didn't serve me anymore. So I stopped doing. So it was really just taking a look at, at my daily activities, work, and also personal life, that was taking away from doing those things that I loved doing during my downtime during COVID.
Hmm. I think during COVID, I had a very similar experience to you. I actually felt very guilty because I was so happy and so many people were suffering.
Same.
Many people, there so many lives were lost and jobs were lost and, you know, people were struggling mentally, emotionally, financially. And here I am at home, like, this is what I want, right? I loved going for walks in the afternoon for no reason. I loved trying a million recipes, baking and finding things we didn't like and things we did like and trying new recipes for dinner and watching movies and craft nights and just the calm and the ease that I felt every day. It was hard because I really did battle with, wow, there's so much tragedy around this and it's so good for my heart.
Yes, I was totally the same.
Yeah, yeah. But I do feel like that definitely was a catalyst for me as well to see where I was just giving so much time and energy to things that I did not even value. And it was really like almost like a beginning of a homecoming for me.
Yeah, we can get in. We do things for so long,
Mhm.
it just becomes part of our life, but it doesn't mean that it has to stay part of our life, right? I think we struggle to get in and out of different seasons. Just because something served you, last year, for the last 5 years, whatever it may be, doesn't mean that it will continue to serve you for the rest of your days, right? We need, it's going back to letting go.
Mhm.
Even though you loved doing that and it was purposeful, is it still purposeful? Do you still love doing it? It does it match up with what your priorities are right now? And if the answer is no, find out a way to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Or maybe you have to tweak it a little bit. Maybe you don't just totally throw it away and burn it down. Maybe you just figure out how to do it a little differently so that
Mhm.
you can fit something else into that slot as well.
Yeah, for
We
sure.
don't have to go and blow everything all up, right? Sometimes we think, to make a change, we have to just burn everything down and blow it up, and that's not necessarily the case.
Mhm.
But you do have to be intentional, and you have to take some time for yourself. Self-reflection, right? And self-awareness, is so important. And you've got to do that for yourself. We are worth it. We
Mhm.
have to remember that we are worth it. And the time we take to do that, even if it's going to be painful for us, right? Because sometimes reflection is painful,
Mhm.
but we have to be honest and we have to stop making excuses. And we've got to make the time that it takes to figure out what serves us and what is best for us so
Mhm.
that we can serve other people and be joyful, because that's what, we want to, at least, that's what I hope. We want to live the best joyful life that we can while we're here. Why
Mhm.
are we just going through the motion? Right? So we gotta do some work initially.
Yeah.
It's not easy, but it's simple if we just, do a few things.
Mhm. I think too that just to be able to focus on the thought that when I am taken care of, when I feel good, the version of me that my family gets is so different than the version of me they get when I'm burnt out and exhausted. Like, I remember when I was a teacher, I would, pour out all of my energy at work. And at work, I would miss my children. But when I came home, I was so freaking tired and burnt out that they got scraps. They got a piece of their mom that was like barely holding on. And then now, really, my intention and my focus is to always care for me so that I can be who I'm supposed to be for me and for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's also, just getting yourself to a point where you can just, get rid of some things and be in the moment. You know,
Mhm.
we sometimes I catch myself, my husband, and my son all on our phones when we're together. What are we doing? Like, what are we doing?
What
Like,
are we
put the
doing?
phones away. Let's all, we don't get a lot of time where it's just the three of us. Let's have a conversation. Let's connect. Let's, be engaged, even if it's small pockets during your day, be engaged in those small pockets.
Mhm.
And again, intention. I keep saying that, but that's how we get so out of alignment with what we really want is the time that we do get, we're not engaged. We're worrying about what we have to do the next day, right? Oh my gosh, I'm so busy the next day, or I need to pick up my phone and do this, or whatever it may be. It's really working on the pockets of time that we get with the people that we have, or just a moment to ourselves, being fully intentional in those moments. And those adds up. That adds up, and if that's what brings you joy, that's what you got to do more of.
Yeah. I love that so much. Stephanie, if anybody were looking to find a guide that can help them, just live more well the way that they want to, how could they connect with you and what type of services do you offer?
So you can find me. My site is alignedanageless.com.
Mhm.
And I'm kind of revamping my website a little bit, so bear with me if you get in there. But I offer one-on-one coaching. I have free workshops that go on all the time that you can kind of connect to. I really focus on sleep, nutrition, stress management, relationships. Those are things I focus on in my free workshops. You can contact me if you want to know more about a discovery call and maybe how do you start working with me one-on-one about some of the things that I've talked about today. And you can email me at Stephanie at ageless or alignedanageless.com. Stephanie at alignedanageless.com. That's my email. And I do have a wellness group on Facebook too that I can direct you to as well if you are the type of person that likes community. A lot of times it's nice to see that there are other people that are struggling with the same things as you are. So, it's helpful to just go in there and talk with other women and get tips and ideas and inspiration.
I love that. I will make sure that everything that you talked about is linked in the show notes. But I cannot let you go without asking the question of the hour, and that is, how does minding yours, living life intuitively and instinctually your way, how does that impact the legacy that you'll leave behind?
I think and I love the title of your podcast. Sometimes we have to learn to mind our own business,
Yeah. Hmm.
right? Forget about what you think other people think of you because it's probably wrong and you probably can't change it.
Hmm.
So, I've really learned to live, and I'll go back again with intention, do things that bring me joy, be the best that I can be so that my loved ones around me can model that and do the same and pass that along. We only have one life to live. And, I want to live better together with all of my people in my community.
I love that so much. Beautiful. All right, everyone. I want to thank you for joining us today. And Stephanie, thank you so much for coming in and sharing your heart with
Thank
us.
you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Minding Mine. And if this episode resonated with you, I want you to please comment, rate, and review the podcast. You know that your feedback helps me grow. And until next time, I want you to go live your life on your terms and mind your business. We will catch you in the next episode.